Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 2, episode 27 of the Big at the Back podcast. Mr. Higgins is unavailable today, so we have this absolute loser in front of us. Matt, how are you?
Shit. I thought you were picking up on the fact that I'm in a different location. I've got a nice little background behind me now. Because the wife wanted the other desk in our office, so I've been moved from the window seat to the other corner of our home office. So, the wife gets what the wife wants, as always.
Are you just trying to avoid talking about FPL for as long as you possibly can on an FPL podcast?
Yes, I am. But I'm going to talk about something different first. The hilarity of my Sunday League football game yesterday morning, which was rearranged from before Christmas because we turned up at the opposition's ground and the nets hadn't been put out by the council. We rocked up yesterday. Bear in mind, there's about 6 pitches at this ground. It was the only one without nets on. We played them a couple of weeks ago in the Cup. That was fine. And then we turned up yesterday and the nets weren't there again. So then, rather than just abandoning, we took a 20-minute drive back to our home ground, kicked off about 40 minutes late in the freezing cold. Thankfully, we won 2-0, so it wasn't the end of the world, but fuck me, what a shambles.
Is it as much of a shambles as Graham Potter at Chelsea?
Yes. At least he's got nets. How are you, Tom, before we get into the depressing nature of the next half an hour of this podcast?
Yeah, I'm fine. Had my birthday last week, so just went out for a nice meal in London. Probably not really worth the effort, to be honest. Would rather just get a takeaway, I think, afterwards. But all good. Life just continues to trundle on. I'm doing my marathon training, which is going to be super, super fun. So I did 22 miles for the first time this weekend, and my legs are still in recovery mode. So I'm just doing a nice, easy 10K tomorrow morning when I wake up.
That sounds shit.
It's very shit, but I've committed to it, so I'm going to see it through.
Fair enough.
But I think we do need to rip the Band-Aid off here because it's not, as you may have guessed from the tone of this podcast so far, it's not been the best week on FPL. And I think what we've learned is that planning a double game week is infinitely more fun than playing a double game week. And the key topics we're going to discuss today are who are the biggest flops of this game week so far, because there's a few. Lessons to be learned since the restart, so talking from game week 17 onwards. We're going to look at the FA Cup fixtures, who is likely to blank in 28 and how the fixtures are going to affect that. We're going to ask, why are Chelsea? Just as a blanket question, why are Chelsea? And then we're going to look at who are we sleeping on? What FPL assets are actually performing really well under the radar that we're not having in and we should be talking about. So let's start off by looking at our game weeks. And Matt, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Hit us with yours.
Do we have to?
We do.
Okay. So, currently sat on 25 big points. But have to take into account I took an 8-point hit as well. So basically on 17 points right now, which is fucking shambles. Kepa with 1 point. And I just, before I get into this, all my transfers were fucking shit. I made 4 of them and every single cunt I brought in was useless. So a back 3 of Rico Lewis, because Man City can't keep a fucking clean sheet to save their lives, even when they're 4 goals to the good against the shit Bournemouth side.
You're really going strong on the F-bombs at the moment.
Yeah, I know. This is definitely going down as explicit when it gets uploaded. Other 2 defenders to start are Tarkowski, 1 point with 1 game to go. And Emerson, I bring in a West Ham defender who's been playing week in, week out. We finally keep a clean sheet and he doesn't play a single minute. Thank you very much. But the good news from that is I do have Tyrick Mitchell as my first sub to come in for 6 points because that man is a hero. A midfield 4, Erdegaard, 3 points. Kevin De Bruyne got the fucking flu. Andreas Pereira, 1 point. Bukayo Saka, who I brought in for Gabriel Martinelli, 6 points as my captain. Oh, fuck me. Up front, Eddie Nketiah didn't start, 1 point. Erling Haaland, my saving grace with 10 points. Currently, with my transfers and everything, has half of my points for the week. And then my other transfer took Kane out, brought Darwin Nunez in, who didn't fucking play. Somebody kill me.
I'm really enjoying this.
If you couldn't guess, that's a red arrow, a big red arrow. I lost like almost, well, the best part of 450,000 places.
And there's still more games to go. You can drop further.
Oh, it can get much worse. Don't you worry. How's your week going? Slightly better, I hope.
It is slightly better, but only slightly. If it's some saving grace, it feels like it's a good week to have a bad week because a lot of the highly owned players haven't performed. And admittedly, you own basically all of them. Before we do, though, I just want to take this opportunity to say I really did tell you so. And I told you to take KDB out. I told you not to bring Darwin in when Salah was right there. Admittedly, he blanked as well. But I think there was a critical error you made last week in not going KDB to Salah and going Darwin and Kane to Darwin instead. But
yeah, that's a big swing. I'm still holding out hope that Darwin's going to bag a hat trick against Wolves. You never know.
He could do. He's looked really good when he's been playing.
So he won't play. Fucking Klopp, specky cunt.
Any more?
I'm just getting it all out. Not for now. I'll save some for later.
Okay, so I have Kepa in goal with 1 point. I have White at the back with 7 points. Trent with 6 points. Batshuayi got, despite being Chelsea's best defender in the last 3 games, didn't play a single minute, even when Thiago Silva got injured. Didn't get on the pitch. 0 points. And Chelsea deservedly lost 2-0 as a result. Graham Potter, start your best defender. Moron. In the midfield, I had Odegaard and Gakpo with 3, Andreas with 1, and Saka captained with 3, double to 6. Then up front, Darwin, as with you, 0. João Felix with 2, rubbish, and Haaland with 10. I've not got anyone coming in off the bench. So that is my game week. I'm on 39 minus 4. So under average. Red arrows for me as well. They're not quite as extensive as yours, it must be said.
I reckon Erling Haaland must have listened to our pod last week when we criticised his away performances and we spurred him on to greatness.
We can take full credit for that. So I'm 100% convinced. Let's talk them. And let's have a debate. Who is the biggest flop so far of the game week? It seems you own all of them, so go.
Marcus Rashford. Rubbish. Didn't get any points.
Did get a goal, though, as we know from our bets.
Yeah. Finally got given it after I got paid out. Then they took my money back and then overnight resettled it as a winner again. Thank you, Bet365. Anyway, biggest busts. I don't know, like, one of the biggest disappointments for me was obviously Saka very much underperforming with his high ownership and high captaincy for the week. You could argue so far, both Darwin, you can't really do much with it because he's got an injury. Salah, also very highly captained from a lot of people, bringing him in off the back of a couple of good performances from Liverpool. Although since we obviously last caught up, the Real Madrid demolition derby happened. But yeah, I mean, they started well the first 20 minutes of that game and it all went downhill rather quickly. But for me, like the one, and it's obvious in hindsight, is Tarkowski, because it was a double game week with one all right fixture and one pretty tough fixture, admittedly against a team they have beaten recently, but that was at home. So coming into that Villa game, you hope, like, that's your banker of he's got to get something of that game to make this double game week worthwhile. And Everton were rubbish.
Yeah, I totally agree. And don't get me wrong, on corners, they do look for Tarkowski. So on paper, it wasn't a bad move. But I said it in the last podcast, I just don't fancy them to keep a clean sheet. I didn't against Villa. I certainly don't against Arsenal. I think all Everton players are a big trap. The only saving grace was that they play in 28 as well. So that's the only reason I think you would have moved on a Tarkowski now. But I think Everton are probably going to be fine. They're probably going to stay up. But that's only because they're three worst teams in Leeds, Southampton and Bournemouth. I think Everton are going to stay up because I said it at the beginning of the season, they played a lot of the teams at the right time to play them. Really wouldn't go near anyone from now right now.
I'm just glad you didn't mention West Ham in those three worst teams.
Well, I think you've done enough now to stay safe, and it's not a bad result for you in the weekend. I mean, Danny Ings, anyone in FPL?
Yeah, if he stays fit and gets that starting shirt, there's no reason to write him off completely. I just want to point out how absurd of a team Nottingham Forest are at the moment.
Wow.
From drawing 1-1 at home, like they've got one of the best home records in the league, especially since the World Cup restarted. They've only scored 3 goals away from home all season. Like, that is unreal. And I didn't realise how bad their goal difference is as well. -24. They've only scored 18 and conceded 42. Like, their goal difference is the only team with the worst goal difference is Bournemouth, and they lost one game 9-0. So, like, that is ridiculous. I mean, they will stay up because their home form will keep them up, but it's outrageous.
But they're doing what they need to. But the problem with Nottingham Forest is that they're actually facing down the line the same problems Everton have faced. They have spent so much this season that they won't be able to invest and buy over the next 2 or 3 due to the financial fair play rolling regulations, maybe even longer than that. What that's going to mean is, because in this league, to stay competitive, you need to consistently invest 60, 70, 80 million every year. FSG. But Forest just aren't going to be able to do that. They won't have the capital to put in. Now they've been spending like hooligans. So they are going to stay up this year, possibly next year as well. And after that, they're going to really slip straight back down.
It's going to be tough for them, especially, I mean, some of their signings have come in and look pretty good. Some of them, Emmanuel Denny, have gone straight onto the shit heap, ready to be flogged off again as soon as they can. I'll tell you what, it was funny hearing Jesse Lingard get booed out of the stadium on Saturday afternoon.
God, everyone hates Jesse Lingard. Coming back to flops of the game week, though, I also think it's worth talking about KDB because there was rumours of him having an illness, but I think he's just been terrible since the restart, essentially. Terrible World Cup and terrible ever since. And you've got to ask, is this his last season at City? Perhaps, maybe.
It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, Pep has this history of sort of rotating players in and out. Obviously, the injury is illness, isn't it? Sorry. So he didn't travel in the Champions League last week. He was obviously rested for that one, and then to come back, people were hoping because that ball, they scored 4 goals in that game. You'd be thinking he'd be getting at least one return in there somewhere because Bournemouth, especially in that first half, was so easy to cut open. But at the same time, like, you look at his expected goal involvements over the last 6 or 7 weeks, they're not terrible at all. So against Forest, his expected goal involvements was over 1. He's always up around sort of between 0.4 and 0.6 in those expected goal involvements. So it's just not quite coming off for him. I think the World Cup was a write-off. That Belgium side looked awful. It looked like a squad at the end of their golden generation's dead now, isn't it? Like the England of 04, 06, that sort of time frame. And he's come back. I feel like I don't know what to do with him really, because obviously they've got blanks coming up. It's just really hard. I feel like I have to keep him at the moment, but it's sort of because I don't like any of the other options unless I downgrade him to upgrade elsewhere. But I still think he'll have one of those games like he did against Wolves at the back end of last season where he scores a hat-trick.
I think you're completely wrong. I think you need to be selling him, especially with Newcastle at home next. I think you get rid of KDB and There's so many other players you could bring in.
I think the Newcastle could be on a downer at the moment. I know they've really got to bounce back after that because coming like first cup final since what is it 99 or something like that. They've got to really bounce back from that, and they've got to come back strong because that they're the sort of team that I think De Bruyne will do better against because they are a team that will look to come at them, they will look to attack, and hopefully he can find those pockets of space and make things happen.
I would rather, if I'm looking at a City asset right now, I'd rather get Phil Foden.
Pep Roulette.
Yes, but the Champions League is back, and Mahrez plays in the Champions League. Foden plays in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's true. I just think the other thing, like, you got to remember the Newcastle City game earlier in the season, which finished 3-3. So there were chances galore in that game. Hopefully, we can say the same for this one coming up. That's what I'm holding out hope for anyway. To be honest with you, I haven't even thought about my transfer strategy at the moment because I've just been fucking ignoring the FPL app and just trying to forget about it entirely.
Yeah, I've been doing similarly. I think we do need to talk about what lessons there are to be learned. And one of the ones I think in particular is actually don't be afraid to go for the right now and future be damned. So on the restart, people have brought in Mitoma straight away, for example. We didn't do it because we were thinking, oh, they've got a blank in 25. But actually, look, before the blanks, it's like 10, 6, 10, 12, 9, and then a blank. We should have just got Mitoma in. Ivan Toney, I've been thinking, oh, not going to go there all season. He's been awesome all year, and he's a real FPL blind spot for me. But in fact, I'll do it on stream, going to bring in Ivan Toney for Darwin Nunez next week, no matter what. He's definitely my transfer coming in. And actually, Mitoma probably is as well. Or we'll get to that in a bit, I guess. But I think think short term is one of the lessons we've learned at the moment, because I don't think strategic long-term thinking, which we're used to paying off so well for us, is working.
Well, yeah, it's definitely not working for me at the moment. I feel like there has to be a balance, doesn't there? Like yes, it's one thing to say I have to go week by week and I can just make my transfers now. But then if you've blown your free hit and you get to game week 28 and you've got 6 players playing, maybe you'd have built up enough to take the hits and get 11 out or get like 9 or 10 out, maybe. But you've also really running the risk of shit in the bed.
Game week 27 bench boost. Do it.
I would. At this point, I might as well. Let's be honest.
Crystal Palace double. Man City at home. Brighton away. Treble off on Crystal Palace, Matthew. I think short-term planning is the way I'm going to play FPL for the next few weeks. I don't want the Chelsea boys. I'll be benching them most games. Maybe I'll even play Danny Ward in the next match. Who have Leicester got? Southampton away. Maybe I'll play Danny Ward instead of playing Kepa.
The thing is, like, Chelsea, we could say this until we're fucking blue in the face, but Chelsea's fixtures are so good, like, just on paper. But the problem is, they're so shit. And they do play in 28, which is another big bonus for them as well. And it's Everton at home in 28. Like, if you're ever going to fucking get some points from your Chelsea assets, that's the one.
Yeah, you'd think so. But also, if you're Graham Potter, 33 senior players in that squad, and that's just that are training with him right now. You can't run a training session with 33 players and pick your best 11 every week.
I'll just pick names out of a hat. Be funny, wouldn't it? Maybe that's why Badiashile was on the bench. Maybe that's what he did.
Maybe that is now what's happening. But yeah, absolutely awful. There's whispers now of Mason Mount wanting to leave as well. But Chelsea fans are gutted. Oh God, I hope he doesn't come to Liverpool. But yeah, that Chelsea,
can he be any worse than your central midfield at the moment?
I mean, I don't think he makes them better. But I'm just going to say it. I don't think he improves our central midfield because
I don't know. I'd take him over. I know they're different roles, but I'd take him over someone like Fabinho any day of the week.
I'd take myself over Fabinho at the moment. And Naby Keita.
You're a cripple.
Like, it's incredible how we spent 48 million on Naby Keita, and he has just been such a complete flop ever since. Absolutely incredible.
Oh well, at least this is actually quite fun now. It's your turn for me to just wind you up and let you off.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, as you can see, I've got a little visitor here. So, yeah, now ignore all the constant whining. That's just my wife.
That's just me.
Yeah. Liverpool in that game against Crystal Palace. Oh, we have the Real Madrid game, and I'm thinking if there's time to bounce back, it's now. We were just completely left at the races, completely cut short, and just absolutely dreadful. Everyone in that midfield was terrible. Henderson played well against Real Madrid, but looked so far past his best in that game. Naby Keita genuinely putting in a 0 out of 10 performance. Fabinho coming on for 10 minutes and making a real case to be sold after that 10 minutes.
Just immediately put on the transfer list.
Immediately, straight away. We need a complete overhaul. How long have I been saying we need new midfielders? And if we're starting 38-year-old James Milner in the Premier League in central midfield, then it shows we've got real problems.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? I mean, like this is where are you guys in the table now? 7th. So it's not horrendous. It could be much worse after. I mean, we've obviously had a couple of better performances recently.
On paper, it's fine, but I just don't have any faith whatsoever.
But the thing is, at this point, you're basically writing off Champions League football next year, aren't you? I guess. So, I mean, at that point, how much money do you lose based on that? Because I think it works out something like in revenue, for every £1 you get in the Champions League, in the Europa League, it's about 22 pence. And then in the Europa Conference League, it's about 11 pence. So that is like a fifth of the revenue for the next year.
Well, if you look at Liverpool, we're not entirely written off. Like, if we win our 2 games in hand, which is a big if because we're not going to win them, then we're only 1 point off top 4. But the problem is, if you look at the way that a lot of these teams are playing versus the way we're playing, you certainly wouldn't put money on us putting a run together at the moment.
No, and then you're also relying. I mean, the teams above you, Fulham still being in 6th place is unreal. And then you've got Newcastle in 5th, Spurs in 4th. I know Newcastle got a couple of games in hand, but I mean that top 3 is pretty much set in stone now, I'd say. So there's everyone else battling for 4th place.
Yeah, honestly, absolutely horrendous. Can we just not talk about Liverpool because I'd rather?
Okay.
I'd rather we move on. Let's talk about West Ham. And is there? I think West Ham are a team I've been sleeping on this year. I think actually in the run-in we have, especially from game week 29 onwards, I can see myself owning a Jarrod Bowen or a Danny Ings, especially if he stays fit.
Yeah, I mean, our fixtures, right this weekend off, because we all know West Ham's record against Brighton is terrible. So just leave that one well alone. But then from then on, assuming that we're going to blank in 28, which, I mean, is almost a dead cert because you've got to assume that City are going to beat whoever it is they've got. Who they got? Bristol City in the FA Cup. So if they win that, then that is a blank. So our fixtures are Villa at home, a double of Southampton at home and Newcastle at home, then Fulham away, Arsenal at home, obviously very tough, and then Bournemouth away. So there's sort of 4 fixtures in there that you think are a decent punts for returns. It was, like you say, good to see Ings get his first start and pick up 2 goals. Like, he is just a proper striker, get in the 18-yard box and he'll do his business. But I think Bowen particularly really pulled the strings in that game. He was direct. He was running at people. I know Danny Murphy actually sort of singled him out on Match of the Day as a very important player. Paqueta looks back to his sort of best, picking apart the defence of Nottingham Forest. And Benrahma with 2 assists as well. So if he can put some more form like that together, like he's had at the start of the season, Benrahma could be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, they're certainly on my watch list as I'm thinking about the wild card. It kind of fits in nicely with the assets that we think we're sleeping on at the moment. Because personally, my 2 moves this week, I'm going to take a -4. I'm going to get Salah. I don't have Salah, but I'm going to get Gakpo and Darwin out, and I'm going to be bringing in Mitoma and Tony. I want to get both of them in now before they both double in 27. Or maybe, here's the twist. I could go Danny Ward to David Raya and prepare for Raya to start in the next game week as well, and this game week actually. I don't fancy Fulham to score against Brentford at the moment, so I could be looking at a David Raya move. Ivan Toney is an absolute certainty for me, though.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I was just checking. He is obviously already most transferred in player this week. I'm assuming there's going to be a price rise coming for him.
Oh yeah.
I'm just looking across some of the form players in FPL at the moment. You got Emerson Royale in there, who I wouldn't be looking to bring him in personally, but he's picked up a clean sheet in his last game, and in the game before that, a goal and a clean sheet. So, and their fixtures are fairly good, but I don't know if it's the West Ham fan in me. I just don't trust Spurs.
I think Royale and Ben Davies are both really good options. Both of them are picking up consistent points, and I think we're really sleeping on them at the moment. I can see Spurs keeping 2 clean sheets in the next 2 because they've got Wolves away and Nottingham Forest at home, and then they blank. But then game week 29, they come back with Everton and then Brighton and then Bournemouth. So it's not exactly a tough run of games.
No, not at all. And I mean, like I say, they'll probably pick up a really good run of form, and I'll look really stupid looking back, like I always do. But the Spurs are Spursy, so they'll Spurs it up at some point.
Yeah, I actually think the wing backs are a bit more appealing than any of the forward players right now.
Probably.
Certainly not going anywhere near Richarlison. But yeah, they're real sleepers. I also think for Brighton, McAllister has started playing in the number 10 role again.
Yeah, he looks good when he gets put further forward. And Brighton have, again, those 2 doubles coming up. West Ham this weekend. So, yeah, just load up, triple up on Brighton right now. But now's your time.
Well, we know Brighton's record against West Ham. We've spoken about it a lot in this podcast. But I think Brighton, for me, are a team I'm going to be buying for the next 2, almost certainly. And I don't mind if I'm even losing a Haaland or a Rashford or a Shaw on the basis of I'll bring them straight back in after the wild card. But to own Brighton and Brentford players, I think there's a lot of upside in having them in the team. Yeah,
I agree. And another one that is sneaking under the radar, I feel like, and someone else that does play in game week 28 is Ollie Watkins. He seems to have been putting a good run of form together. If you look across his last 5 game weeks, it's 8, 11, 7, 8 and 6, so returns in every game. And then the next few fixtures are Crystal Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth at home in that blank game week. So that screams he's probably going to be leading the line that weekend. And then a double, a slightly tougher double of Chelsea and Leicester, or is that really a tough double at the moment? And then Nottingham Forest at home, and we've just discussed Forest's terrible away record. So he's one I'm definitely keeping an eye on as well.
Yeah, I was just looking up Ollie Watkins, actually. 55% shot accuracy, but that's gone up. An average of 1 goal every 3 games this season, and he seems to be in a run of form at the moment. I don't hate it at all, and I can see myself getting Toney out and putting Watkins in for 28.
That's not a bad shout at all. Both around the same sort of price. And yeah, if you're thinking that sort of short-termism that we're talking about, then that seems a very sensible way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think for Aston Villa as well, Buendia looks really good when he's been playing. I don't hate it at all, and don't hate the idea of having Buendia on the basis of they play in 28. And now that game in 28 is Bournemouth at home, so you probably want at least a couple of Villa players.
Yeah, definitely. Did someone say Luca Dean?
No one said Luca Dean ever.
I'm pretty sure you said Luca Dean.
He's not even starting for them. Do not no, there's no circumstance in which you should buy Luca Dean on FPL. We've gone through this before. Admittedly, I had him and I loved him at the end of last season. But
you're boring. Another team that I was just looking at and have surprised me, but I feel like you've probably missed the boat on them now with their fixtures coming up, is Fulham, and specifically defensively. They've been looking pretty tight at the back. So, like, Anthony Robinson, last 5 game weeks, 2, 6, 8, 5 and 7.
They've been looking brilliant at the back because they've had Paulinho playing, who is the best central defensive midfielder in the league this season. He is that good. and he's out for the Brentford game. Get Ivan Toney for this game, because no Paulinho, that defence is going to be exposed to hell. So I really think Fulham defensively, they have been good, but the next 2 games are horrendous. After that, it's Liverpool, so easy.
Mitrovic hat-trick when he comes back from injury.
He's got 2 last time, so you never know. What a frustrating own Mitrovic is as well. But I think it's mainly because of Paulinho. And without him against Brentford, I think they could really, really struggle.
Yeah, definitely. He has been fantastic for them this season, like you say. And I just can't believe they're still 6th in the league. Like, they could very much be looking at a European place. So long gone are the days of the Fulham up and down every year. Imagine if they end up in Europe next year.
I mean, I remember I can't remember who the manager was. They got them to Europa League final, and then Sergio Aguero just absolutely destroyed them for Atletico Madrid.
Sergio Aguero at one end and Bobby Zamora at the other end.
It was an absolute massacre, honestly. But I've never seen anyone move the ball with their feet that quickly. Aguero was a real just stick of dynamite in that game. I just don't think as well you can even consider any Manchester City assets at the moment.
I thought you were getting Phil Foden in. That's what you told me.
Apart from Erling Haaland. No, I don't think you can consider Phil. I mean, if you really wanted to be different and take a punt and you needed someone to get in that midfield slot, get Phil Foden. But I think there's 5 better midfielders you can get. None at City. I think he's the best City midfielder you can get. But doesn't that say a lot?
Yeah, it does. I think they're just, like you say, Mahrez appears to be probably more of their Champions League midfielder now. They should get through with a 1-1 draw at Leipzig. They should probably polish them off fairly easily at home. We've spoken about their difference in home and away form so far this season. So they'll be more than happy to come back to the Etihad with that 1-1 draw. And then it just depends who they go with in each of those wide slots, because it looks as though like Bernardo Silva's been deployed more of a wing back lately. Yes. So that frees up one of those spots. And it's going to be Grealish and Foden probably, but is Grealish going to play every minute of the Champions League and every minute of the league? So maybe Mahrez comes in at some points and they sort of rotate the 3 of them between the 2 competitions. It's hard to predict at the moment.
How is a player as bad as Jack Grealish getting starts for a team as good as Man City every single week?
He's not a bad player.
I mean, if you've watched him the last 5 games, it's just that Champions League game, just terrible footballer. Just can't run forward, keeps passing it back. City seem to have reverted to the way they were playing before Haaland, but Haaland's still there. And I feel really sorry for Haaland. I think he's been completely neglected in that team, which he still scored 28 goals or something, but he's being completely neglected by his teammates.
It does just go to show how coaching changes a player. You look at Grealish when he was at Villa, and he was known for running, taking people on and winning fouls. And that just doesn't seem to be happening as much under Pep, which is obviously down to the style that he wants to play, which obviously it's very effective, but it suits certain players and it doesn't suit others. So that's why it's very hard to predict what he's ever going to do.
Yeah, I think we've all, especially at the back, given up trying to predict what Pep Guardiola does. I think one more subject to discuss today. Why are Chelsea? Go.
Where do you even start? I mean, the amount of money they spent, it's all on attacking players, but none of them are the sort of attacking player they need. They should sign Romelu Lukaku.
They do need a number 9.
They do. Maybe third time's the charm, maybe, for Lukaku. Comes back next year after his loan. But, Sterling looks shit. Mudryk looks like a complete waste of money. I don't like to be too harsh on players because it's not easy to come and bet into a new league, especially midway through a season when and in a brand new side with a load of new signings who you haven't played with before. They're all still getting used to each other. So it is a lot. And to be perfectly honest with you, I almost feel a little bit sorry for Graham Potter because of, this is obviously the Todd Bowley train now, and he's just at the head of it. and he's got to deal with all that and everything that it brings, and all these signings make it work. So it's not going to be easy. There's going to be pressure on him, but I don't think he's going to be sacked. I think it would be stupid to sack him because you're not going to get Champions League football anyway now, so it's a write-off. The only way there's any chance of him getting sacked is if it looks like they're going to get relegated, and I feel like that's a long way off. Like, they're stuck with him for at least the first half of next season now. But just where do you see any? Like, I think João Felix still looks all right, but there's just nothing else on that pitch that gives me any faith that they're going to start picking up good results soon.
I totally agree. I also think João Felix is the only bright spark at the moment, and he's only there on loans. He's going back again at the end of the season, so there's literally nothing for them to be happy about at the moment, which brings me a lot of joy. As a club, I just think they are so woefully mismanaged at the moment, and you're right, they've spent so much on Mudryk, rubbish. The new Argentinian central midfielder as well,
Enzo Fernandez.
He looks bang average.
Since he signed for Chelsea, no player in Europe's top 5 leagues has been dribbled past more times per game.
Exactly. He looks absolutely bang average. Nice stat, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh, another.
I love how I could just make these up. I could just make things up.
Another stat that was sent by our very unbiased, loving Arsenal friend Stuart. Nottingham Forest got an XG of 0.01 versus Arsenal, which was the lowest in recorded history.
Leicester, not Nottingham Forest.
Leicester, that's definitely what I meant. Which is weird considering how good Leicester have been at goal scoring.
Yeah, and that just goes to show. And Gary Lineker actually said it on Match of the Day. No Maddison, no hope.
Yeah, and that's it with Leicester. As soon as Maddison comes back, I'm getting him straight into my FPL team. Especially if he's back for the double, I will captain Iheanacho if Maddison is there.
Come on! One of my friends actually was checking because we do our group hacker every Saturday, and his pick was Leicester Arsenal, both teams to score. So he was checking the stats on the game, and it has the XG on Bet365 now. And he said Leicester's was 0.00, and he was like, "Oh, it must be bugging out or something." and then he checked about 10 minutes later, and it was 0.01. He was like, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah, it was a very boring game, but Leicester didn't even look like scoring. Yeah, going back to Chelsea, what happened to Raheem Sterling? He was a good player.
He was especially in the last couple of years at City.
Yeah,
he was carried a bit, I think. I think he was like
England, he was like the star man, the standout.
Yeah, he always performs for England, and he always does when he just seems to turn it on in an England shirt. But I don't know, mate. I feel especially the last year, maybe at City, he was probably carried a little bit. I think a lot of people were surprised when Pep let him go, but like. The big managers have to make calls like this when it's time to let big players go and when it's the right time. Sir Alex Ferguson was brilliant at it. And Pep seems to sort of have a knack for it as well. But I don't know, like, again, he needs the right players to play off of, which I think is why he plays very well for England, because he's got Kane. They don't seem that, like, Chelsea don't have anyone in that mould or anywhere near that capability for him to play off of. So he's going to struggle.
If only they had a tall, powerful striker that could really cause defences problems.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? I do wonder what they're going to do in the summer, because they can't just go and spend all that money again, especially now that UEFA have limited the length of contracts.
I think we've got to wait to see. I think they're not going to be able to spend that money now they've done the contracts thing. Because, yeah, they got loads in with the FFP, but without the Champions League, which I don't think they're going to get, I think we're in big trouble on that side.
I mean, currently sat on 31 points, like 10th place, over halfway through the season, a negative goal difference as well. Like that is seriously poor. That's like the Chelsea of when Leicester won the league and Chelsea finished sort of mid-table that year. I feel like I say they need an overhaul, but they've just had an overhaul. So what do they do? Fuck knows. Good luck, Graham Potter.
Yeah, well, arguably Graham Potter hasn't really made his mark. So there is, I guess, in Chelsea fans, there's defence hope that he can really make something happen. Like Cucurella is a shadow of the player he was, for example. But it's trying to polish a turd here, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like their backline is, like, on paper at least, is pretty solid if everyone's fit, and at the top of their form. James and Chilwell, we both know what they're capable of. They're both very good when they're at the top of their game. Thiago Silva has been there, done it, and he still turns out performances at like 38 years old. Badiashile, if he plays, is also very good. They got Wesley Fofana, who came on Sunday, who they spent so much money on and has barely played because of injuries. But then going forward, it's just like they've just thrown shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least Chelsea aren't looking as bad as your FPL team.
Yeah. Well, that was low.
Do you have any planned transfers for this week, or are you just holding off until the end of the week?
I mean, I'm holding off for the end of the week. I think the one thing that's definitely happening is Ivan Toney's coming in, probably for Darwin, as your next fixture is Man United, which is a tough one. Admittedly, you play Bournemouth after that, but I don't know. I feel like if you're not going to be performing in the double, I'm not really fussed about owning any Liverpool assets. I may do something else, but I don't know. I just feel like I'm in this state of flux at the moment where I don't really know what to do. So my current 11 looking at for next week is Kepa, but I may start Ward. We'll see about that. Back three of Lewis, Tarkowski and Trippier, although I could start Mitchell because he's an absolute fucking legend. He's earned his place in my starting 11. Midfield four of Saka, KDB, Ødegaard and Rashford, and then Haaland and Nketiah and Darwin as of the moment up front, but that will definitely become Toney. I don't know what to do with the armbands. Currently sat on Saka because they got Bournemouth at home. Could go to Haaland, like we know what his home form is like. I could even go Toney if I bring him in.
I don't hate it at all. So I've already done the Toney move. So I've got Kepa as the goalkeeper, but that may change to Raya. I'm starting White, Trent and Badiashile. Then I've got Saka, Rashford, Gakpo, who will probably become Matoma, and Ødegaard. And then João Felix, Ivan Toney, and Haaland up front. The captaincy is currently on Ødegaard, so that's my bus captain at the moment.
Oh, interesting. Didn't see that one coming.
He's going to get 3 bonus points in one of the games soon, so I feel like it could be against Bournemouth.
Just look at his, like, I know he somehow robbed the 3 bonus points against Leicester against Villa last week, but like his performances have been underwhelming lately. So I feel like he's due one, surely.
I feel like he's due one. I've got a feeling. Cool. Well, look, teams TBC because we're not really happy about FPL at the moment, but we will be back next week with more insights and seeing how we did over the end of the double and the start of next game week. So until we do, you can find us on Twitter at @BigAtTheBack.
Yep, you can find me at Higgins92. Tom is at TomMadden92. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video goes live. Unfortunately, do we have to come back next week? Like, really? Like, can we not just like?
We have to come back. We have to come back. We've got a whole fan.
But no one cares about that fan.
I mean, that fan is your dad. So,
yeah, true. He is supportive on Facebook and Twitter.
We will be back next week, guys. Until then, enjoy the rest of the game week, and we hope you're doing better than us.